It is the season to wear red lipstick and a heart on your shirt and to do a teardown of Hinge. Woohoo! So today we're going to do a teardown of Hinge, and we are going to talk about the 5 mistakes that you could make as an online dater. Hopefully not after you watch this video. So here we go. The first mistake we are going to call unintentionally filtering your pool. So Bumble released some data that shows how much we limit our pool based on height, but people also do it based on age. And if you're a male, this is so terrible, under 6 feet tall, fewer women will see your profile because of how the onboarding flow works. It allows women to filter out shorter men. In fact, one stat suggests that because of these height filters, hold on, this is so crazy, 90% of women end up looking for just 6% of the men. And so this number one tells us a crazy stat about defaults and onboarding and how creating settings can have long-term effects. So relook at your settings. But it also tells us something about unintentionally filtering things, that you may not want to make your pool smaller in the very beginning. Maybe you want to have a larger data set to play with. But props to Hinge, because Hinge has, don't exactly know when, but now hidden their height filters under their premium feature. So this is probably a really good upgrade strategy for people who really do want to filter by height. But it is also making it easier for people not to filter by height because it's not in the onboarding for most users. So good job, Hinge, to take it out of the default, take it out of the onboarding, and move it into maybe a preference hidden in settings. Okay, mistake number 2, we're going to call shooting for the stars. And we'll change and talk about Catalina. So by the way, this is Mobin. These are screenshots. If you haven't used Mobin, do recommend it as kind of a way to get screenshots for apps. But basically, one study examined 6 months worth of data from nearly 15,000 online dating interactions and found that men and women, so both of us are at fault, tend to send messages to the most desirable users. We are messaging Catalinas, regardless of the person's own desirability. So we may be shooting for the stars online more than we are offline, and this could be problematic. And it basically says we don't have a core understanding of our own preferences, thinking that we will only be happy with a Catalina or a 6-foot male. This is a little crazy. It means we're missing out on people who we could be compatible with. So I don't want to say this but lower your standards, at least for looks, maybe raise them for other things. And I know this can be hard to believe, but it turns out that looks fade. You know what grows? Personality. So in a study of MBAs over the course of their studies showed that once you get to know people, the attractiveness meter can change. You can actually increase your attractiveness to people when you get to know them, and you can also decrease it. We've all had probably that friend where, like, once you get to know them, they may become a little bit less attractive, and turns out that can happen on the flip as well. Okay, we are on to mistake number 3, which is not messaging enough. So in the dating world, the gender differences are pretty stark. So this mistake is actually pretty targeted to women. A study analyzed more than 6,000 online daters, profile viewing, contact initiation behavior, and one of the questions the study asked is, are men and women different when it comes to browsing and contact initiation and reaching out? And the results are pretty, maybe not surprising, but pretty big. Men viewed more than 3 times as many profiles as women, and they were approximately 40% more likely to initiate a conversation. The average man sent 3.2 times more first contact messages. I got that right. And so what that means for women is, what are you doing? Start reaching out. A match leader, when I interviewed them for a podcast, basically said, look, the number one thing that women can do on these platforms is just throw more darts, send a message, right? This is not rocket science. If you message more people will respond. And so this mistake is targeted to women. Get out there, send a message. So the next mistake is now targeted to men, which is, it's not just any message. You can't send a short message. Don't send a short message. Make it a little bit longer. So the Match folks who we talked to basically said that messages with longer character counts up to a limit perform better. So you're kind of you're like the hey, or how's it going, or what's up, babe, doesn't actually work. longer message up to a limit perform better. And of course, again, some message is probably better than no message, but the longer, the better. And that again makes sense. We are people across, the internet from each other. So putting some effort, calling back to their profile, asking a thoughtful question is likely going to get a higher response rate. At some level, this is a conversion game and you kind of have to try. And now we're at our last mistake, which we'll call maximizing. And this is maybe, a feature and a bug of online dating, which is you have a lot of options to choose from. You could just continue to flip, to flip, to flip, and yet you may be disappointed. Why? Because basically having this infinite amount of options can result in what is called a maximizing mindset. If there are plenty of fish in the sea, it becomes difficult to be satisfied with the one in front of you. And so you keep, somebody compared this to relationship shopping, you keep shopping. And so in experiments, online daters who choose from a large set of options of potential partners diverge more from their stated preferences. And they spend more time studying profiles of these potential partners. And they were also less satisfied with their choice than those who selected from a smaller set. And then when they were asked a week later, people who had the larger set changed their preferences more than the people who had the smaller set. And so, it's nice that there's so many options, but this is kind of a bummer. And it affects more maximizers more than satisficers. I am a satisficer. And so maybe I'm pretty happy with a limited choice set. And so the advice here is for you maximizers to, instead of just over analyzing each profile, make a decision, get your message out there and just get going. Happy Valentine's Day. Good luck out there. Put on some red lipstick and get swiping or messaging.